and keep watching TV 786.
I would now request Prime Saida Wasi, Senior Minister of State at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office and Minister for Faith and Communities, to enlighten us with our thoughts.
Good evening and Assalamu alaikum, Your Excellencies, fellow parliamentarians, ladies and gentlemen. My husband has a great phrase. He always says that सियासतदानों की तकरीरें तभी अच्छी लगती हैं जब वो छोटी होती हैं, which basically translates as the best speeches from politicians are those that are very small and short. So I will try and keep my remarks succinct this evening. I don't want to be the last thing that stands between you and your meal this evening. Can I start by congratulating Gamarbai and your whole board for the initiative in making this event happen. I know it's something that you and many others in this room have spoken about, how Christmas is actually a universal celebration, how it's very much part of everyday lives. But for you to bring so many different communities from so many different backgrounds together, I think is a real testament of the hard work that you and your board have put in. I've spoken on many occasions as to the importance of multi-faith work. We used to have multi-faith dialogue. Tony has heard me say this on many occasions, but that has to move beyond samosa and a cup of tea in a drafty church hall. It has to move to multi-faith work, actually doing things together as a community. And only tonight I've received an email of how churches and mosques are working together in West London to support homeless people during this winter period. And that's what we want to see, multi-faith action. And that action has to go beyond just the everyday practical provision of essential need that faith communities do up and down this country on a daily basis. It also means that we have to be prepared to speak when we see injustices. Some of you may be familiar with the speech that I gave recently in Georgetown when I spoke about my concern of the rising level of persecution against Christian minority communities across the world. I felt that as a Muslim, it was important for me to speak out. I felt it was just as important to speak out against the persecution of Christians as I felt it has been to speak out against the issue of Islamophobia here and in the wider world. And the reason why I think it's so powerful when a faith speaks for another faith is because there isn't the concept of self-interest. On many occasions when I speak on the issue of Islamophobia, I've said, well, I wish it was one of my non-Muslim colleagues who was raising this. I think it's so much more powerful when you are of another faith, because you're basically saying this is wrong, it is wrong in principle, and it's not just wrong because it affects me. And therefore I'm delighted to hear of the work that Tony and your colleagues have been doing in West Yorkshire in terms of the work that you've done in Pakistan. And I know that Yaqub Bhai, who I've known for most of my life, is an incredible advocate, not just for Pakistan, but for the Christian community too. I want to focus on two childhood memories. Memories for me which link into the minority experience in Pakistan. Now, the minority experience in Pakistan was there right at the outset, when the nation was created, when the famous words of Muhammad Ali Jinnah were very much about a pluralistic, multi-faith nation, and when the white strip in the flag was all about making sure that the minorities were represented properly as Pakistan was being created. But there are two very personal memories that I have of the minority experience in Pakistan. One is being in Karachi. I must have been about 8 years old, and listening to Christmas carols in Urdu to exactly the same tune as Christmas carols in the UK. So I remember listening to Good King Wenceslas, and it was in Urdu, but it had the same theme tune. And I think it was incredibly interesting to see how many different things were coming together then. And I think it was then when I first became aware of the fact that there was this large Christian community within Pakistan. And the second really is about identity. Now, when my parents first came here, and I'm sure that when many of your elders came here, there was a real sense that being in a country which was not the country of their birth would mean that over time they and their children would lose their identity, would lose their religious identity, would lose their cultural identity. And therefore they were torn really between wanting their children to succeed and integrate as full members of the British society, but also holding on to them and making sure that they kept them Pakistani and Muslim. And my parents toyed with that, and when we were very, very young, and we're talking now over 40 years ago, my parents were torn about whether or not we should celebrate Christmas, because there was this sense कि अगर हम लोग Christmas celebrate करेंगे तो आहिस्ता-आहिस्ता हमारे बच्चों को confuse हो जाएंगे, उनको ये नहीं पता होगा कि हम क्या मुसलमान हैं या हम लोग क्या हैं यहाँ पे. So they were kind of holding on in those early days, quite confused about what they should be celebrating and what they shouldn't be celebrating. And as we got older, we started to realize that Santa Claus never came to our house. And we kind of went to school, but Santa Claus had been to everybody else's house. And my elder sister tried to reason it on the fact that we'd had the chimney breast taken out, and therefore there was nowhere for Santa Claus to come down. And then my sister, on one particular evening, actually left the back door open so that he would be able to come in through the back door because he couldn't come down the chimney because we didn't have any chimney breast anymore. My younger sister started to introduce Christmas into our lives. And she said to my father that the 25th of December is the birthday of an incredibly important person. And we need to celebrate it. And he said, well, you know, and she said, Abu Jan, do you not know that Muhammad Ali Jinnah was born on the 25th of December? Do you not feel this is a day that we must remember and celebrate and have a big festival? So that was how it was introduced. And then slowly it wasn't chicken, it became turkey on Jinnah Day. And then we decided we had to have tinsel on Jinnah Day. And we then had to have Christmas crackers on Jinnah Day. And now the coat tree and the whole thing is done. And he knew what was happening. But over time we took him on a journey. And what was the birthday of a very special man became the birthday of another very special man. And therefore we now feel that I think over time he felt that he could reconcile his Pakistani identity and his British identity, his Muslim identity and his acceptance of other faiths. And I think that takes me back to the work that I'm doing in terms of freedom of religion and belief. I've always said that the rejection of the other is usually because you feel that your own identity is under threat. If you look at the far-right extremists in this country, they feel they have to reject the other because they feel they don't have a sense of their own identity and their own belonging. But I don't think acceptance of another is actually a weakening of your identity. It's a strong, open identity that allows you to accept the other. And therefore a strong Muslim, Pakistani, British identity that we have in our generation is much more acceptance of the other, whereas my parents, who felt their identity was under threat, found it much harder to be on that journey. So what does that represent for me today? I think what today represents is really a maturing of the British Pakistani community, a sense that they are sure of being British and Pakistani, a sense that their identities are not under threat by reaching out, and an acceptance that we have far more in common to celebrate together than we have in relation to differences. So can I say in advance a very Merry Christmas and Happy Jinnah Day.
Now, to conclude, I would request Sayyid Kamar Raza Sahab, co-chairman WCOP, to sum up tonight's proceedings. Kamar Raza Sahab.
Thank you, my choice of Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Right Honorable Baroness Warsi, Your Excellencies, Lords, Ladies, Member Parliaments, and Gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good evening. Board of Governors and Member of World Congress of Overseas Pakistanis are most valued invited guests from different nationality, culture and faiths. it's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on behalf of World Congress of Overseas Pakistanis, and on my own behalf, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to all the speakers for gracing your presence and sharing your thoughts on biggest festive event of the world. World Congress of Overseas Pakistanis stands for more than 8 million Pakistanis in the 144 countries of the world, constituting the 7th largest diaspora of the world. WCOP exists to empower the overseas Pakistanis and build bridges of understanding and cohesion in their respective land of adoption. As you could see, Pakistanis make excellent doctors, engineers, scientists, fashion designers, musicians, sportsmen, community leaders, entrepreneurs, and so on. A recent YouGov survey found out that the British Pakistanis are almost twice more entrepreneurial than the native British and other nationalities in the UK. And I must say, Pakistan and Pakistanis are much more than the negative stereotype and myths associated with them. The same YouGov survey found out that the personal contact happens to be the biggest mode of smashing these stereotypes. That's why we invited you to this Christmas dinner, so that we get in touch and you could see it for yourself what British Pakistanis stand for. I would quote the great Dr. Martin King, who said, "Most of the stereotypes are born out of distance. We don't know each other, so we feed ourselves the garbage cooked by media and negative stories. That's how we build our invisible walls around ourselves and get further isolated. The power of human touch and connection must not be underestimated. We have to learn to live together or perish like fools." For centuries, Christians and Muslims have lived together and shared the same challenges and hopes in many parts of the world. As you witnessed, Christmas is celebrated with a great festive spirit in Pakistan. This event has been hosted by Pakistanis of all the faiths and beliefs. Those who want to support World Congress of Overseas Pakistanis are welcome to join us. And I must say, I'm massively thankful to Reverend Saida Warsi, Bishop Tony Robinson, Anas Server, and other speakers for their excellent thoughts on building bridges of understanding and common ground. I'm indebted to the member board of governors and members and executive team of World Congress of Overseas Pakistanis, as these are the people who spend their monies, invest their time, and walk extra mile to make these events happen. This bridge of understanding is built on their feet and toes. My special thanks to ambassadors and diplomats who honored us today. And I must not forget our friends in the media and press who reach out to you and spread message of peace and hope. A very warm Merry Christmas and Happy New Year in advance. God bless you all.
Hey everyone, this is Veena Malik and keep watching TV 786.